Saints quarterback coach Scott Tolzien on the quarterback room, a.k.a. Spencer Rattler, a.k.a. Tyler Shough, a.k.a. Hunter Deckers, a.k.a. Jake Haener. New Orleans searching for the next big thing, ladies and gentlemen. All right, off the bench. Matt Flynn, Jacob Hester, and Scott Tolzien is their guest. This is one hell of an interview. I mean, you got the guy himself, the quarterback coach of the most important quarterback battle ever in the history of the New Orleans Saints. So can't wait to hear what he's got to say here. Real quick before we start, I saw a comment. We did an off-the-bench video a couple days ago, and they had mentioned that they aren't Saints fans. Like they're not tried and true Saints fans, Jacob Hester and Matt Flynn. I just want to make this clear because I had a few people commenting saying, like, is that weird? Is that whatever? I don't think it is. So it might seem weird, I guess, to be in the media market but not be an inherent like fan of the team. But I think that there's still something to offer from these guys. Like they both play in the NFL. They both have a ton of experience. They won a national championship. They understand the locker room. They understand the huddle. They understand what it is to be in the NFL. So offering an unbiased take, I think, is fantastic. So I know some people have been kind of thrown off by that comment, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. At the end of the day, football dudes talking football is always a good thing.
So, Scott, talk to us. New Orleans Saints. So tell us how all this came about. So you started coaching when you got done playing. So you played 7 years in the NFL, right?
Played 7, right place at the right time for 7 years. Basically, a lot of good people or whatever. And then, long story short, is I did a gig at Wisconsin as an analyst. So my offensive coordinator and quarterback coach was Paul Christ.
Yep.
And then he ended up becoming the head coach of Wisconsin. So I was like, hey, thinking about this coaching thing, you got any advice for me? And he's like, well, if it ever interests you, like, I got an analyst job where you kind of get your feet wet part-time. I was like, hell yeah, that's perfect. So I did that for a year. I'd always stayed in touch with Coach McCarthy from the playing days,
Big
stayed
Mike.
in touch with him. And then when he got the Dallas job, he hit me up and was like, hey, like pretty much all my spots are filled, but I do got one like quality control / like ops job if you want to get your foot in the door at this level. I was like, hell yeah. Like we had just had our first daughter, so we were getting ready to get a house. So the timing was perfect. So we went down there in 2020. And like the crazy part about that is like I take this job and you're doing like ops stuff, like helping out with practice schedules, stuff I'd never done. Like you're on Excel multiple hours a day. And then this crazy thing called COVID comes along and you're like, oh, great. Like not only is it first year doing operations stuff.
Now you got to do first year ops with the best practices of COVID, where everything's completely new and completely uncharted territory.
I have no clue what I'm doing. Now you've got like memos coming into the league on the hour, like tweaking rules. So needless to say, that year was hell,
Yeah,
but you
tough.
also grow a lot from it. That was back in 2020, and now I'm first year with the Saints, so year 6 of coaching.
And when you got to Dallas, well, first of all, when you took the job in Dallas with Mike McCarthy, like I was shocked 0%. Like I always knew that you had that work ethic, that mindset of like you loved breaking down the game, you loved the film room, you loved everything about it. So like it didn't surprise me at all that you went into coaching. And I was like, well, this guy's going to end up being a really, really great coach. And then when you went down to Dallas, I believe Kellen Moore was already there. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So Kellen's a year younger than me. Obviously, we knew each other just from the college football circuit or whatever, but was crossed over with Kellen for my first 3 years, and actually Doug Nussmeier as well. So was with those 3 guys for 3 years in Dallas. And then when Kellen got the job here, he offered to me. We'd obviously stayed in touch for years.
Kellen certainly has seemed to have built a coaching staff that he's familiar with, which, no surprise, but seems like he has had some kind of a relationship with everyone on his staff.
Have a lot in common, just age, where we are in life with families and football and whatnot. So, so we're united with him and Nuss, and it's been a really good thing so far. I mean, it's the honeymoon phase. That's how this thing works right now. So everything's sweet right now. We haven't lost. We're 0-0.
Yeah, we're the best team in the league.
Scott, in your playing days, you had a chance to really be around some all-time quarterbacks, and you start your career with Phillip Rivers there in San Diego, and then you go to Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers, and Flynn's obviously there with you in Green Bay, and then you get to Indy and Andrew Luck's there. Like, when you're around guys like that, is there things that you picked up that when you became a quarterback coach, when you became a leader of that room, like you kind of implement some of those things that you learned from being around some of the best quarterbacks?
Great question. And yeah, there certainly is a ton of valuable information to get from someone like Scott Tolzien, who isn't Aaron Rodgers. He's not Andrew Luck, but he was around those guys. He knows what makes them tick. He knows how they prepared. He knows what it took for them to get to that level.
Dude, you brought up a great. I think about that all the time, and like that's one tangible thing I try to share with my quarterbacks. Like, I was lucky to play 7 years, but didn't play a whole lot. Did way more standing on the sidelines than playing. So, but like what I do is like, man, one thing I am good at is I'm really good at observing. So I got to observe, like you said, like 2 Hall of Famers. Luck was on the fast track to potentially be a Hall of Famer. Like I was gifted this opportunity to be around a lot of really good football players, and Dak as well was the MVP runner-up 2 years ago. So like you get to see a lot of these different styles, and like you see what's similar and what's different between the guys, and that's super valuable to draw on and like share those experiences with. I think there's a natural draw when you're a young quarterback to like, oh, how do the greats do? Like, how did Aaron Rodgers do things? And it's fun to be able to share some of the things that you observed about how they were. And like speaking to that point, that was one thing when my first 2 years was in San Francisco. My rookie year was the same rookie year as Colin Kaepernick. They drafted him in the 2nd round.
Oh yeah.
So they had Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, and then I was the undrafted guy after I got cut in San Diego. And then so we go to the Super Bowl the second.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a Super Bowl run with Jim Harbaugh.
Year.
Or with Jim Harbaugh.
And then I get cut, go to Green Bay, and like the one thing I learned from Matt and Aaron, I was going to share this, like just because it was huge for my career, is like you can still have fun and joke around playing the game and still be productive. Sometimes there's a stigma when you're a quarterback. You got to be serious all the time, and like you're the captain of the ship, and you are, but you can still have a great time doing it. And like felt like I played the best football of my career there because I was loose and having fun and enjoying it.
Yeah, I think that's one stigma that gets put on the quarterback position. You got to be serious, first one in, first one out, which is all true. You have to be able to like turn it on and off.
You got to be relatable to your teammates.
You got to be. I mean, I was around so many greats, just like Scott's.
Yeah, you got to be a dude. You got to be a dude's dude.
Talking about it. And there's no one way to skin a cat. There's greats that did it that way. There's greats that didn't. But Scott, you bring up like such a good.
I heard a story about Peyton Manning. No idea where I heard it from now, but that Peyton, would talk to every single person like before practice, before games or whatever. He would just kind of go to each locker room and just kind of bust balls or whatever. And Peyton, I think people see Peyton Manning and they think of his like corporate, serious guy, whatever, the sheriff, all that stuff. But from everything I've heard in the locker room was a very different version of Peyton, a very much a dudes locker room talk kind of guy.
Valuable point from like a backup perspective, because you have to be able to observe, because you don't get the reps. So if you can't observe and apply what you're seeing the great ones do or the person in front of you do, you don't have a chance to make it. And of course, you had a 7-year NFL career, so you were really good at doing that and being able to implement and taking advantage of your spot. So from your observation, being able to observe and apply, I got to think it helps you from the coaching level, because you get to observe and you're applying it in like a teaching way now. So you're observing like what makes people good, what works, the footwork, the tone of voice, what we're doing. Like those are all things you had to do to maintain a job in the NFL, but now you get to do it and teach and be relatable to players. So I guess what is your, like, if you had to pick like one thing that you are, when your quarterbacks, talk about Scott Tolzien, like what is one thing that you like to implement with them or put on them and give them something to teach every single day?
That's a great question, first of all. And I think like one thing, that there's a feel to this position, right? It's the most interesting position in all of sports, all the main four sports. Like I'm no different. I do draft evals and guys too. And it's just it's a total inexact science on which guys pan out and which guys do and don't. But so like I think there is an element of, I think it helps having played the position, just knowing, okay, what's what's not enough coaching and what's over coaching. Like there's totally a balance there, because you can't be a robot playing the position, but yet there is a discipline to the position that needs to be adhered to. And like I do believe in like having disciplined footwork. Like that's a big thing for me. Some of it comes to because that's how I had to play the game, so there's a natural bias there. Like I didn't have the biggest arms, so you had to be right with your feet so that things synced up on time.
It's always interesting too. It seems to be the ones who lack the like physical gifts are the ones who end up being the best coaches, because it's impossible to teach. You know, like Brett Favre can't teach his arm. You know, like Brett Favre can't teach that kind of stuff. Michael Vick can't teach his legs and how he's escaping the pocket. But someone like Scott Tolzien can absolutely teach, like, look, I didn't have the physical tools, so this is what I had to do to succeed. This is how I did it. And most of the time, those guys have to be cerebral. They have to be really into the playbook, really into the observation side of things, really into the analytical side of things, and really into the technique side of things. So it's funny because normally, and it's like flip-flop. Like Michael Jordan is the worst basketball teacher. How could he possibly teach? How could he possibly teach what he did? You know, he's not who you want to go to a camp and see him. Do. I mean, obviously, you would like to go to Michael Jordan's camp, but as far as like him teaching you, all right, this is the fundamentals. This is how this is how you should shoot. This is how you should do this. Because most of what he has is you can't explain it. Someone else can't do it. They can't replicate it. But Scotty T, you probably can replicate it. Probably can learn from it.
I think that's probably one of the things I'm a little bit of a stickler on is footwork, but yet, there's like, as you know, Matt, like there's feels to, how you throw a 20-yard dig versus how I throw a 20-yard dig. Like there is variation in your feet. And so you got to be able to work with your quarterbacks too, and allow for that variation. But, those are some of the things like, hey, quarterback being able, like you can kind of weed out the BS in a meeting room when they're like, hey, I didn't see this guy. Well, sometimes that is real. Like the fans from the sky or from the TV camera might see a shallow cross running wide open, but they didn't realize that like the 3 technique overset and was getting edged, and the quarterback really didn't have vision to him for that split second that he was going through his regression. And I think that's all relevant stuff.
Scott, one of the things that, we've talked about with the quarterback room that you're going to be leading there, it's obviously a young quarterback room. You got a rookie and you got a second-year player. You got a third-year player. You don't have like a 10-year player in there, which, most of us, when we've been in these rooms with quarterbacks, there's always like one older guy. So when you have a younger room like that, do you change anything that you go about, like in the day-to-day? Like, is there anything that's different? You just came where you were coaching Dak Prescott, and Dak now you look up and he's certainly a veteran in the NFL. Anything different when you got a young quarterback room?
I would assume it's very different. I mean, you got to. I would think the basics all of a sudden become very important. You have to make sure that, not like, I don't want to say hand holding, but you, like with a veteran, like, okay, they know this, they've been through this, they've been through that. With the Saints quarterback room, they've been through absolutely nothing. Right, so you can't leave any stone unturned. You can't assume they know anything. You can't assume that they're used to anything or they have something down. It's got to be teaching from the ground up.
I think you do teach the 101 level first, and that's not a bad thing. The worst thing in this game is when things are assumed. The old adage, assume makes an ass out of you and me.
Oh,
and,
Scott, family show.
I do think there's truth to that. So.
Hey.
If anything, like just teaching stuff at the 101 level, it's just nothing's assumed. And then it goes hand in hand with the fact that we're a first-year operation. So,
that part is good for the Saints, and for the Saints situation is that everyone's learning at the same time. It'd be very difficult, or be much more difficult for the quarterbacks if this was Sean Payton's 11th year, and everyone else on the team has all this years of experience, and they've all done this, and they all understand, and then all of a sudden you're trying to play catch up. But, hold the mustard. But right now, these quarterbacks are learning with the entire team and learning with the staff, and everyone's learning together, which makes it more of a seamless experiment.
I'm learning stuff too on the fly, right? So I tell the quarterbacks all the time, like the best thing we can do is all have dialogue. There's nothing worse than a quiet room, because I really feel like there are no dumb questions. Like the question that you might have actually might be a question that I have as a coach, you know, and the best questions always come through the quarterbacks anyways. like when you're in a staff meeting, there's stuff that you don't think about until a quarterback mentions it. It's like, oh yeah, like, let's find an answer, or maybe there is a simpler way to do this thing. And so I'm just like 101 level, but let's have dialogue and let's mold this thing how we want to.
All right, Scott. We actually have like a real bona fide like QB competition happen.
Oh, yeah.
So I really just kind of want you to break down like the player, how they've responded to OTAs, getting ready for minicamp next week. Like, I don't want to ask you about like the competition and where they're at on anything, but like just tell me about you got the young guy. Shough just got drafted. Rattler coming off of a year where he played a lot, had some unfair disadvantages that he dealt with during that, but showed some moments. Like, how are those guys responding to this competition, and kind of like what's their rotation like? I mean, quarterback competitions could be so different from team to team, and the head coach's philosophy. Like,
sure, these guys they've all been awesome to start. Yeah, I really appreciated their approach and just who they are as teammates. It's been really natural. So, and then at the same time, like, we don't have the pads on right now, so we're like, if you just know everything changes when that comes on. So like
I mean, I think like they are just kind of out there tossing the pill around. They're spinning the pill. It's just kind of a 7-on-7, a glorified 7-on-7, if you will. But from everything I've heard, and we've heard a lot, is that these two are out there competing, and they are taking it serious, and they are getting after it. And it seems like it has lifted the entire OTA. It seems like the intensity of this quarterback battle has lifted everything up and kind of has set the tone, which I'm sure is part of what Kellen Moore wanted. Part of what he wanted probably was to have this kind of light a fire for the rest of the team. But it seems like both these guys, it's been incredibly positive.
Quick to be like, hey, let's not overanalyze things right now. Let's truly develop guys. I think that's where we're at right now, and I love that part about it. Like, let's just develop guys, and let's not get caught up in the competition of it.
I mean, that's important too for fans to remember. Like, when you see the stats come out of the OTAs, like, oh, Tyler Shough went 7 for 8 and Rattler went 8 for 8. That means Rattler's better. Or Shough went 7 for 8 and Rattler went 6 for 8. That means Shough's better. Like, we're not really in that spot yet. We're not really in the competition part yet. And we won't be in the competition part really until training camp and preseason, especially preseason. So this is kind of just the see what they look like, see how they're acting, see how they're physically handling everything. But we're not going to have an answer. So it is kind of fruitless to look for an answer right now. You got to just kind of see how they're adapting to the competition and let that kind of be it.
Let's just put our best foot forward, coaching to our best ability, and let things marinate, rather than making abrupt, impulsive decisions. But like they've all handled it like champs, and it's been a really fun group to be around. And I've appreciated that from them. Yeah,
and the development part is it can be challenging. It can be tricky. I mean, it's a numbers game too when you're trying to develop and actually have some sort of competition of young quarterbacks, because you only get so many reps in practice. So the way a coaching staff can handle that from a development standpoint is tricky, and there's not like one way to skin that cat either.
R.I.P. to that cat.
Were you a part of like, I know Coach McCarthy always just talk about quarterback school, and like that was a foreign concept to us, because like I was part of the new CBA, and it's like it's totally changed the development of the league. But like I've heard stories about how
3 QB schools.
Yeah, that's when was that? Back in like March.
So I was it was off season right before like OTA started, and it was tough. It was a tough workout.
Yeah,
like when I train quarterbacks every now and then, like I put them through what that QB school used to be, which is awesome. But yeah, hey Scott, we really do, man. We really appreciate your time. We know you're busy, especially.
Good stuff, Scott. And I'll tell you this. I mean, I'm no spring chicken, but if I would have went through QB school right around my 3-on-3 intramural flag football days when I was lighting it up, I might not be making videos, ladies and gentlemen. I might be in the middle of a 15-year NFL career, but it is what it is. Maybe a different life, right? All right, good stuff to hear from Scott. And obviously, Scott's not going to come on here and be like, Tyler Shough number 1, Spencer Rattler number 1. Like, can't expect that. But It's good to hear from these guys. It's good to know who's part of this staff and to hear them talk, to hear the philosophy, to hear what they're doing. So I like it. Yeah, I mean, good stuff. Great stuff here. All right, get on down there in the comments section, ladies and gentlemen, and I will see you in the next video.